Hey guys, so I'm actually recording this video right now because I wanted to talk about something. Now on this channel, to be honest with you, I don't know exactly what I'm doing with this channel. I've been thinking about doing a vlog. I know I have my gaming channel, but at least in this one I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. I think it's just going to be a bunch of random stuff. But I did want to talk about, sometimes things that happen in life. And I've been thinking about, one of the things I was thinking about doing, I was thinking of doing like a travel vlog with this channel. Maybe like partly a travel vlog and other things. Maybe some restaurant reviews. But lately I haven't been able to upload. I've even thought about doing like a golf thing. But I haven't been able to upload because, I've been dealing with a lot of like family issues in a way. And what I mean by that is like, these past 2 years have been kind of rough. 2 years ago, my mom passed away, and it was a lot to handle. And, she was one of the most important people in my life, and she passed away from cancer. And then just a couple days ago, unfortunately, my dad passed away from cancer as well. He passed away from brain cancer, and I believe what it's called, I think it's a glioblastoma. I think that's what it's called. And sadly, it took his life very quickly because everything happened so quick. And it's tough because, seeing my dad was a very independent person. He was an independent person. He wanted to get things done himself. Like he knew what he was doing. Even though he was getting old, he was getting up there, he was always really, like, he would want to help out. Like, I know even though he was living with me, he would be independent. I mean, I have no other way of saying it. Like, he would cook dinner, he would do stuff. Like, even though I tried to help him out and I do certain things, he was always more like, he wanted to be like the guy that, he didn't want to be like he didn't want to be an issue for me. But I never looked at it that way. I just wanted to make sure, he's my dad. I wanted to make sure that he was in the best position to, live as comfortably as he could, especially on his older age. And unfortunately, he started declining very quickly. I noticed a lot of weird things towards the end of last year with my dad, and I don't know if anybody here has actually dealt with that type of cancer, glioblastoma. I think that's how you say it. And it started out with a lot of weird things with my dad. He was very, like, his behavior started to change. He started acting a little bit off, and it just got weird after a while. I noticed some weird stuff, and I tried to tell him to go to the doctor, and he honestly, like, by the time he went to the doctor, I guess it was too late. They had found something weird in his brain at the time. This was before Christmas, and we I never expected it to be something like that. Um, he back in June of last year, he fell, and they did a bunch of CT scans and MRIs and all that stuff, and they didn't find anything at that time, at least that I know of. And I know that they checked a bunch of stuff on him, but he fell in the shower. Like, he was starting to have balance issues, and I know his legs, he kept telling me sometimes, I guess they would become like swollen. And as time went on, I wanted him to go to the doctor. He went to the doctor a couple of times, and I guess they honestly kept saying they didn't find anything. And then, once December came by, that's when I started noticing some very weird things with him that kind of started to really concern me. I did notice that he would start sleeping a lot. I noticed also that he was becoming very, like, he didn't know what was going on. He kept acting rather weird. And I think one of the times that I saw like a lot of concern with him was when I saw that his left eye started getting a little red. And so we were able to take him over to a doctor. Um, and I know they did some checkups with him and all that stuff. And they said they found something a little bit odd, but they didn't mention of it being a cancer or anything like that. So I continued, like, I mean, he was still doing certain things. It just seemed a little odd the way he was reacting. And so we had talked to the doctor about, continually doing other things, other tests. So we were going to continue doing this after the New Year's, because obviously Christmas was coming and New Year's was coming and all that. And so, I was working at the same time, even though I do my YouTube stuff, I work, I work during the day. Sometimes I have to work at night. It's just my schedule is very hectic. And so he seemed to be doing a lot better. They gave him some pills and they gave him some eye drops. And when they gave him the pills and the eye drops, he improved a lot. Like, he was starting to become a little bit more forgetful, but his symptoms seemed to, like, disappear at times. So he wasn't so off. Like, he would remember stuff. He started cooking stuff again. And I kind of, I said, oh, okay, maybe it's just basically he just needs some sort of medication. He should be good. And he seemed to be doing really well. Like, when the year started, I talked to him about doing some sort of like a father-son trip, and we thought about going fishing and doing all these different things. And he seemed to be okay. He was just a little bit more forgetful than normal. And I talked to family members of mine who said that they noticed the same thing, that he was a little bit forgetful, but we all kind of attribute it to his age. And my dad literally turned 90 at the beginning of this year. So, for 90-year-olds, I was thinking, like, hey, he is 90. He's getting really old. He's probably just becoming forgetful about everything. I never attributed it to something more serious until a couple weeks ago on January, I think it was 16th. I think it was that day. I came home and I found my dad had fallen. He was in the shower, I guess. And I found him on the floor because he had just fallen. And so there was a lot of weird stuff that happened. So I had to call 911 immediately just to have a little bit more of an idea of what was going on. They came in. They after he fell, he was extremely confused. And I know he was holding his head, so the first thing I thought, like, he fell, he hit himself in the head, he got a concussion. And I basically, they took him to the hospital. He went to the hospital and they checked him out, and they saw him, and they automatically thought he had a stroke, because he was extremely confused. He was very, very, very confused. He was extremely confused. He just didn't know who he was, what was going on. He didn't even know who I was. He was having a hard time understanding that he was in a hospital. Just very, very confused. And so they did a CT scan again. They kept saying that it was possibly a stroke, so they kept treating him like a stroke victim. And he got the CT scan done, and then they said they found something really odd in his brain, and they didn't know if what they had found could be a tumor. So they were still saying it could have been a stroke, but now they were talking about how it could be cancer, which is extremely shocking, because when my dad went to the hospital a couple months ago, and after he fell, he had the same thing. He had fallen. They didn't find anything. They did a whole scan on his brain. They did a whole bunch of stuff, and they didn't found anything. So then they ordered to do an MRI. They did the MRI, and then once they did the MRI, they told me, like, they found a tumor in his brain, and they said it was a very big tumor. Which kind of explains why his eye was getting red. um, and he was starting to act a little bit weird. And when that happened, you know, they kind of told me that his lifetime was limited, and to me, it was a shocking thing. Um, you know, I never expected it to be something like that. I never thought it would be like a cancer or anything like that. But we, I had to discuss it with like family and figure out what we were gonna do, because the doctors kept saying like, hey, you know, we could do a radiation treatment for him. If we do radiation, it should help him out with the symptoms. It should extend his life a little bit. Maybe it's not gonna extend it a lot, but it should give him a couple months, which again, to me, you know, even though it's shocking how like things progressed, as time went on, I knew because of his age, I kept preparing myself for like whatever could happen. You know, even before he turned 90 last year, you know, after my mom had passed about 2 years ago, me and my dad talked about a lot of different things, like what could we expect? Like, you know, I wanted to be prepared, just like my mom had prepared everything just in case. I wanted to be prepared for him passing away. And I know he never wanted to talk about that subject. It was a tough thing to talk about because he had lost a lot of family members. And obviously, you know, he lost, you know, my mom. So it was something he never wanted to really talk about. But I kind of prepared myself for it because of his age. You know, I said he's going to be 90. You know, you don't know how much longer he's going to last. We got to start thinking about stuff like that. And I know we're going to do like I said earlier, we were going to do a father-son trip to go to do some stuff, even if it was fishing or whatever, just to do something, just, you know, because you never know. You want to value your time with your parents as much as you can. That's something I did a lot with my mom. And, you know, unfortunately, she passed, like I said, 2 years ago. And, you know, at least, even though she passed away from cancer, she didn't last that long with the cancer. It was a very quick decline for her, so she didn't suffer for long, which thankfully, like, I didn't get to see her go through a lot. So, you know, when I found out that my dad had cancer, and the type of cancer, because as soon as they told me the type of cancer, I've heard of it, but I didn't know exactly about the thing that it could cause. I was expecting a couple months, kind of like what happened with my mom. So they prepped them up. They told me they were going to do the radiation. They started doing radiation. They did a 5-day treatment of radiation. It was something that they had recommended. Like the doctors and the neurologists all recommended doing a 5-day treatment for him. And that the 5-day treatment would actually help him out a lot. It would stop the cancer temporarily, and it wouldn't do any harm because it's non-invasive, and he would be able to do stuff. Like, he probably wouldn't be the same person, but he would be at least in a better shape than what he was at that moment. And so as a family, we all decided, let's do the treatment. It's non-invasive. It's a 5-day thing. And they started doing the treatment, and, you know, he went through his first day of treatment, and I guess it did a lot. Like, he improved a ton just after 1 day of radiation. He didn't have that much inflammation. I know they gave him steroids, is what they told me, so they could stop the inflammation. And he seemed to improve. He was doing a lot better. Like, he wasn't as confused anymore. He wasn't as off as he used to be. He even recognized me. Like, I was able to put family on the phone for him, and he was able to talk to them. It was like, you know, he wasn't 100%, but he was a hell of a lot better than what he had been. He did 1 day, then, you know, they gave him a couple days just to see how he reacted to the radiation. Then they did 4 days straight of the radiation treatment, and he seemed to be doing really well. You know, me and the doctors had talked about, and family, of course, was involved. We all talked about how things had improved a lot, and, you know, we talked about, you know, figuring out how his plan would be, because he would need constant, you know, he would need help. You know, someone would have to stay home, and I was willing to take care of him. And So we all decided on putting him in hospice for a little bit. He would go to an inpatient hospice. And then after that, we would bring him back home. He would stay with me, and I would take a medical leave from work, and, we'd figure finances out some way, somehow. But I would be there with him just to make sure that he was okay. At least for the time being, I would take some time off. I know that hospice was going to come in. They had approved him for a certain amount of time for hospice to come in. So if anything, I could always, I was working with my boss at work about figuring out what I was going to do. And if I had to cut back my time, we would discuss it whenever it would happen. And everything seemed okay. He got out of the radiation treatment. He was good. He was doing good. And he went into hospice. He went to the inpatient hospice. He was great. He had no issues. This happened last week on Thursday. He went to hospice. We were going to keep him there. They wanted to keep him there for about a week, and then we would bring him back home. And he went in on Thursday, fine, no issues. He was eating, no issues. He seemed like he was okay. He had a little bit of a headache, but nothing, nobody thought anything more of it because he was communicating. He was actually getting up, which was completely shocking for everybody. He would get up by himself, even though he was being monitored, but he would get up and he would do, he would walk, and, everybody was telling me wow, he's actually doing a lot better. He could last a little bit longer. They said that, they kind of said between a couple weeks to a couple months, but they were shocked at how well he took the radiation, how it literally helped him out a lot. And I was shocked personally because, I expected him to be, even though to improve, but I didn't think he would actually improve so much. So I was so happy to see him, walking again and doing his stuff. And to be honest with you, I don't know what happened after that. I left Thursday because I had to work on, I didn't have to work on Friday. I was off on Friday. But, I said to myself, no matter what, even if he does improve, I know that he's potentially going to die at some point, and I need to start getting certain things ready. I need to figure out, funeral costs, and, whether my dad had certain things pre-planned like my mom did, which unfortunately he did not, so I'm dealing with that right now. And I don't know what happened on Friday night. He started to decline very quickly. So Thursday I left him. He was okay. Everything was good. We were hoping, from what I discussed with the hospice people, that by maybe Tuesday or Wednesday we would consider starting to think about bringing him back home, and then I would just start figuring out ways to stay home and be with him as much as I could, so I could help him out with his daily activities and make sure he was okay, taking care of him basically. And then I don't know what happened Friday night, but he just started to decline so quick. And I know they told me that his cancer was very aggressive, but I'll be honest, I never expected what I saw. He went from, on Friday night, apparently he just started declining. His blood pressure started to, from what I was told, I guess it started to drop. He just started acting confused. He was speaking gibberish. They called me Friday night to let me know what was going on, and I became a little concerned. So I went to visit him at hospice, and I noticed that he had declined a ton, that he had really dropped off the cliff. And it was shocking. It was shocking, after seeing him improve so much. And Saturday, I stayed as much as I could. Saturday I went back home because I was so tired, and I had to go work as well. So I told the people at hospice just to let me know what was going on. So I went home, I slept for a little bit, and then I went to work. And I was at work. I had to work in the afternoon, so I had to be there pretty late. And I just know when I got out of work, they called me again and they said, "Hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your dad is getting worse. He's starting to have trouble breathing. He I don't know, he could be in the early stages of passing away. Um, he could be in the early stages of passing away, and I think you should come see him. And I immediately told him, yeah, I'll be there as soon as I can. I got home from work. I called family members because they all wanted an update. So I told them I'd call them after work. I told them everything that was going on. I showered really quickly, got in the car, drove to the hospice area, and I went to see him. And that moment that I saw him, I immediately knew, like, I hate to say this, but I immediately knew that he was dying. Because it reminded me a lot of my mom when I saw her in her final hours. And this was like Saturday night. This was like before midnight. I saw him and he got pale. He was in really bad shape, and it just, a lot of emotions came out of me at that time, and it hit me really hard because I was just shocked at what had happened. And to be honest with you, it's kind of hard to explain it now, because I was like, how can he decline so fast when basically a day ago he was walking around, not perfect, but he was doing better. And he had improved so much, and then out of nowhere, he just declined out of nowhere. And he just kept getting worse and worse. I was there, I kept trying to comfort him as much as I could. Holding his hand, you could feel that he was weak, because I guess he was trying to hold my hand. He had no strength to hold my hand. Then he had started having a lot of trouble breathing. He had trouble swallowing. And I stayed there as long as I could. I was exhausted, and I told the nurse at the hospice center, I said, hey, I'm sorry. I just, I want to go home and shower and take a nap, and I'll be honest with you, I'll be back immediately. I just want to take at least an hour nap or something, just because I'm so exhausted right now. And so I got home, I showered, and got in bed. Couldn't sleep because I was still thinking about everything. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was still shocked about everything that I had seen. And finally, I guess I just fell asleep because I passed out. And the phone rang. It was like 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. And the nurse called me to tell me that he had died. He passed away. He just passed away. And even talking about it, I'm still kind of shocked about everything. It's still shocking. It's really shocking. I've never seen something like that. Like, I've had family members pass away from cancer, but I've never seen something the way that it happened to my dad. And, it was kind of rough. I know he didn't suffer, thank goodness. I didn't get to, I'm glad he did not suffer, but it's still so shocking that everything went to hey, a couple weeks, couple months, to just out of nowhere, he just was gone. And I still have words to I don't have words to explain about what happened. I had the really tough time to call in every single family member to tell them that he had passed away. And, I woke up a lot of people at that time, because it was at 4 something in the morning. It was almost 5 a.m. And when it happened, I cried so much. I had so many emotions that I didn't know what to say. And it's tough. It's tough. So I don't know if anybody's gone through something similar, with that kind of cancer. I'll be honest with you, I never expected something like that. I'm still shocked about it, even when talking about it. When I explained it to family members, they couldn't believe it either, especially after they had just changed his diagnosis to being he was going to be there for a couple weeks, couple months, and all of it changed so fast. So it was quite shocking. It was quite shocking. Um, but I don't know. I just felt the need that I wanted to tell this story to everybody out there on YouTube. It's tough. It's tough. I know I've been rambling a lot. I wanted to do something unedited. I didn't want to cut anything. So this is just me telling you everything that happened. Um, it was tough after my mom passed away. I debated not doing YouTube anymore and got back into it because it's just something that makes me happy every time I do it. And same thing happened now with like the passing of my dad. It's still fresh in my mind because it literally happens Sunday morning, and today is Tuesday. It's only been a couple days. And even though you're not seeing me crying right now, inside I'm like really hurt about everything that happened. Sometimes they say that you kind of wish you had a little bit more time to give your family members a hug before they pass away. I feel that way right now. Because even before everything happened, like I said earlier, me and my dad had talked about taking a trip, and I was going to surprise him with a couple of different things while we took that trip. I was planning on taking him fishing. I was hoping, his brother would come in as a surprise. There's a lot of things that I had thought about doing, and unfortunately we couldn't, I couldn't do it. But some way, somehow, my dad's in a better place right now. At least he's not suffering. But I just wanted to go ahead and tell you guys what's been going on. I know this channel's been kind of like inactive. I've been doing a lot of the gaming channel, and there's still pre-recorded videos on that side that are going to be released. That they've been pre-recorded for a couple days. There was one that's a couple weeks old that should be releasing here soon. I think it either releases today or tomorrow. But yeah, I just want to give you guys an update. I know I've been going on for 27 minutes now about everything. Going forward with the channel, once we get through all this, I'm hoping to do a little bit more things on here. Probably, I want to do a video about talking about YouTube and the algorithm and all that stuff. I also want to talk about future plans, ideas, things I want to do with the main channel, with my gaming channel and this channel. And potentially, I wanted to do some golf content too, so I don't know if I'm going to do that here, if I'm going to do that on a different channel. But I just want to give you guys an update, everything that's been going on lately. And just let me know what you think. Comment below. I know if you guys have gone through something similar with your parents, with cancer and all that, just, comment below. I feel for you guys. I mean, it's been tough. But I just wanted to post this on there. I know I've been rambling now for 28 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video. And thank you for listening to me. If you've made it this long, thank you for listening to me. And hopefully I'll see you soon.